Hey everybody, Chris here with Wallow Hikes. Today we're finally going to talk about getting a tent for backpacking. Really? So an essential part of your gear is going to be your tent. That's going to be your shelter. That's going to keep you safe from the elements. It is going to keep the bugs away from you. It is going to give you a safe place to sleep. So it's a pretty important choice to make beginning. So what are you going to get? Well, you've got tons of options, and depending on what your needs are and how much money you want to spend, you've got so many options, right? So where to start? Well, consider what your budget is right now. If you got 30 bucks for a tent, you're going to get a $30 tent. If you're independently wealthy and can throw money at anything, you can get yourself an $800 tent. You're going to need a shelter. You can sleep under the stars and get rained on and snowed on and eaten by mosquitoes and maybe a bear. Okay, you're not going to get eaten by a bear. Going light is important. Comfort is important. So we're going to balance these things. If your budget is very small, buy a cheap tent. Again, I started out with a backpacking tent. It wasn't super expensive. It came from Walmart. We're going to take a look at that tent in a little bit, and you'll know why not to buy that tent. But you can get a 2-man, 3-man tent at Walmart, little dome tent, probably around 5 pounds, maybe 6 pounds. It's going to give you lots of room. It's not going to be impossible to carry in your backpack, and it'll keep you comfortable. Now, if you would like to spend a little more money, get a specific backpacking tent, and those come in 1-person, 2-person, 3-person, and they are various prices. My tent costs about 120 bucks. That's great for a backpacking tent. That is, honestly, I love it. And yeah, it weighs more than some of these tents out there, twice as much as some of these $800 tents out there. But it works for me. I take it on almost every single trip, and that's what works for me. 120 bucks. And then you can move on up to 250, 300, 400, 500, $800 tents. If that's what you want to do, cool. Higher in price, generally lower in weight. Some of them are very minimal. And again, you're going to balance comfort, weight, cost. Some of these ultralight tents, very fragile. You got to baby these things. That's not an investment that I want to make. You might, other people do. As a beginner backpacker, unless you're super rich and you know you're going to love backpacking, you do not need to go out and buy one of those tents. Spend 30 bucks, 80 bucks, 120 bucks, whatever. Most people find that when they're beginning in backpacking, they spend less, their stuff weighs more, and they still get out there and they love it. And over time, you can invest in more expensive, lighter gear. So you're going to want a tent. Features of tents, there's single wall tents, there's double wall tents. Typically, you're going to want something that is a mesh tent with a rain fly. Rain fly goes over the top to keep the rain out. The tent itself keeps the bugs out. On hot summer nights, it's really nice to sleep without that rain fly. I've been on trips where I didn't bring the rain fly if I knew absolutely 100% it was not going to rain. So definitely you're going to want that. How much room do you want? We're going to look at some of these tents that I have, and you're going to see the differences on the space. If you just want a tent to sleep in and you don't care about having any spare room and you don't care about keeping gear in there or being able to get dressed in the morning in your tent, a one-person tent might be great for you. And that's fine. Tents have various headroom. Some of them have one door, two doors. Some of the doors are on the end, some are on the sides. Those are features that, you can compare, think about what you want. I prefer a two-person tent because of the space. I prefer having the side door. It's easier to get in and out. I don't have to crawl all over my gear. And I prefer not to spend a lot of money. So I have the perfect tent for me. Your perfect tent's going to look different than mine, most likely. Where can you buy a tent? Well, I talk about Walmart a lot, because they have cheap stuff. Now, if you're ethically opposed to Walmart, that's fine. I get that. But you can find these things elsewhere. And then at the outdoor stores, REI has a lot of different tents. Columbia, you can find tents everywhere. You can find them online. The nice thing about buying a tent online is that it's not going to show up at your door and not fit. Don't buy hiking boots online. Don't buy clothes online. But buying a tent online is fine, and you can compare and you can find pretty good deals from time to time. But do your research, take a look. Don't necessarily listen to people on YouTube who are telling you which tent to get. But you're going to want something. 5 pounds is really typically about as high as you want to go. Some of these tents may be 6 pounds. You get above that, you're going to start feeling it, especially with all of your other gear. It gets heavy. And a heavy pack makes for, sore muscles at the end of the day. It can be a miserable experience. So again, we're balancing weight, cost, and what your needs are. Again, if you just need a tent to crawl into at the end of the day and sleep in, and you do nothing else in there, a one-person tent's going to be fine. It's going to save you weight. I mentioned before, I had a dome tent that I bought at Walmart after I decided my backpacking tent was ridiculously small. Again, probably a $30, $40 tent, 3-person tent, 7x7, 2 poles, 10 stakes. All of it was fairly heavy. It worked fine for years and years. I didn't even consider that I needed a different tent. And when I started looking around, I shopped around for a very long time before I decided to pull the trigger on one of those. So you can get a tent like that. That's going to be fine. Once you have your tent, set it up. If you don't know how to set up a tent, well, first of all, read the instructions. But there's going to be all kinds of YouTube videos out there, all kinds of resources on the internet on how to set up a tent, right? So I'm not going to do that. You can find that elsewhere if you can't figure out how to set up a tent based on the instructions that comes with it. That sounded kind of condescending. Set up your tent before you go backpacking. Get comfortable with it. Make sure you know where all the parts go, what parts you need. You're going to have guy lines. Are you going to need those or not? Depends. It depends on if it's windy or not. It depends on, lots of stuff. Sometimes I leave that stuff at home. Sometimes I don't take all of the stakes. Are you going to need tent stakes? Yeah, you're going to need tent stakes. And depending on where you're going, what type of tent stakes, that can change. But it's going to come with tent stakes. It's going to come with everything you need. And you just need to practice setting it up. And the reason for that is, first of all, you do not want to get out into the backcountry 13 miles from the trailhead and find out that brand new tent you just bought is missing pieces. You're also going to want to know how to set it up without getting frustrated. If at the end of the day, if you are tired and you're dehydrated maybe or hungry, you're going to have less tolerance. You're going to have a short temper, and trying to figure out how to set up a tent for the first time, that can be very frustrating. You don't want to run into that problem. So practice at home, throw it in your backyard. If you don't have a backyard, put it up in the living room. And another reason for that is if you happen to get into camp after dark or it's raining, you want to be able to get that tent up quickly. If it's raining, you want to be able to get it up quickly. If it's dark, you're not going to be able to see. You want to be familiar with those parts and how it goes together. So those are things you want to think about. Simpler typically is better. My tent has 2 poles and some clips. That's it. Super easy. I can put up my tent in no time. I can do it with my eyes closed. Okay, I haven't tried doing it with my eyes closed, but I bet I could. So where are you going to buy your tent? Maybe online, maybe at REI, maybe at Walmart, maybe at a garage sale, maybe on the social media marketplace. But get yourself a tent, set it up, lay in it, see what you like, see what you don't like. You're probably going to buy several tents over the period of your backpacking career, but whatever you get first, you can invest a bunch of money and get something great. Or you can invest a little bit of money, get something that's going to work, and decide if you're having fun backpacking or if this is for you. But the whole point of these videos is to get you out there and make you enjoy it. Not make you enjoy it, like enjoy it. But in hopes that you will enjoy it. And, you know, that's going to do with comfort. And comfort has to do with how big your tent is, how much it weighs, a lot of factors. So look around, ask questions, go to REI, ask a bunch of questions. They're going to try to sell you a really expensive tent. You will learn some things, and then I suggest you walk out of there and you go buy a tent somewhere else. Sorry, REI. So I'll show you what I have, and then we'll wrap up. Okay, so taking a look at the first of the 3 tents that I have here today. This is the Wenzel backpacking tent that I started with 20 years ago. I haven't had this thing set up in probably close to 20 years. It is a backpacking tent. It does not come with the cat. It's lighter than my other tents. It's also way, way smaller. You know, if you want to save weight, great. But you're going to want to be comfortable out there. This tent is going to give you shelter, and that's about it. Pretty much no room in here to do anything. Yeah, right now I need to pull out the guy lines, but as you can see, there is no room in this tent. It's definitely able to keep the rain out, and that's about all. Not recommended. All right, so next up is the Kelty Late Start 1-person tent. Got this last year for the Grand Canyon, rim to rim to rim. Just to save a little bit of weight. Fairly inexpensive tent and plenty of room, honestly. But this is what a 1-person tent's going to look like for you. There are definitely lighter options, but for the price, this is a great tent. And Kelty often has sales. As you can see, there's plenty of headroom. I'm a pretty tall guy. And you're not going to have a ton of room to move around. But lots of little features in here. We got little spots for your stuff. Overall, not the worst tent, not the best tent. You're gonna get more expensive, lighter tents, but starting out, not a bad choice if you want a 1-person backpacking tent. So with the Rainfly on, this is what it looks like. You got these little clips here for the Rainfly, just 4 clips and you are ready. So that's the Kelty Late Start 1. All right, and now we have the Hike and Bike Yosemite 2-person backpacking tent. And as you can see, This has got a lot more space. Not a lot more weight than the Kelty. Definitely some. Two-person tent is obviously going to weigh more than a one-person tent. Having said that, while we want to stay light, we don't want to trade that for comfort to an extreme. I have found that the two-person tent, two-person backpacking tent, really makes all the difference. You've got plenty of room in here, so if it rains, you can keep all of your stuff in there. You got room to move around. You got room to change your clothes. You've got room, well, for all kinds of stuff. So this is the, again, Hike and Bike is the company. This is the Yosemite tent. I like this tent so much that I've actually purchased two. A feature of most tents nowadays is they come with these little clips. Makes setup super easy, super quick. I've got it down to where this tent goes up in less than 5 minutes with the Rainfly, which we'll put that on in a moment, but let's take a look inside. So a little hard to see from in here, but there is all kinds of room. I have all the room in the world. There's a bunch of room above my head here, and that's even with this little net thing here. You can put a headlamp up there, car keys, whatever. All the room in the world. So you toss around a lot, you're good to go. You've got doors on both sides. Makes it super easy, especially if you're up against a tree or something in a tight spot. Most two-person tents are going to be a lot like this. This has tons of room, so if you have a wide sleeping pad, this is going to be fine for that. I keep all kinds of stuff in here, and if it rains, I can even put everything in here if it's really bad. But this house also has really nice sized vestibule, so when the fly is up, you got room on both sides to store extra gear, so you're never going to have a problem. And it's well worn. I don't use a footprint, so I always risk tearing the floor, but you know, footprints, extra weight. Just be selective in your campsite. But you know, from time to time, things do get damaged, and so it's not the prettiest thing, but repair tape, that's your friend. You want to take that with you where you go to. So this is my tent. Maybe about $120, $129 when they can keep it in stock. It's going to be comparable to some of the more expensive tents. Of course, this is going to weigh a little bit more than the super expensive tents. It's going to weigh a lot more than the super expensive tents, but works really great. Super comfortable. If it's a rainy day, I'm not going to feel claustrophobic. So, and I'll throw on the Fly just so you can take a look at that. So just to give you kind of an idea with the Rainfly on. This is our tent. The Yosemite. Again, I don't have it guided out right here because can't drive tent stakes in here, but on the other side, we can give you an idea of how big that vestibule is going to be. So you've got all kinds of room for your stuff. Keep it out of the rain. Very roomy tent. It really feels luxurious at the end of a long day of hiking. So again, those are three options that I have. None of them are the expensive tents you're going to see on the internet, and they serve the same purpose. Fairly durable, warm. This holds up in the rain great. So this is my go-to unless I want to go a lot lighter. And, you know, eventually I may be willing to buy one of those other tents, but after 20 years, you know, I'm still having fun out there with the gear I've got. So it's worth checking out. I'm not sponsored by them. I'm never will be sponsored by anybody, but it's a brand I like. They also have a hard time keeping these in stock because people are starting to notice. So you've got options. What I haven't shown you is just your typical Walmart tent. And I won't be doing that because, well, I don't have any to show you. All right, so that was a look at some of the tents that I have. And you can see that I do have a certain bias for the Hike and Bike two-person backpacking tent for a lot of reasons. And again, the Kelty served me really well, rim to rim to rim, Grand Canyon and Canyonlands, where I needed to go ultra light. We're pretty light. So, and that other tent, dear Lord, right? I mean, it worked for my cat, I guess. So do some research, go online, take a look, save up your money, get you a tent, or, just take the $20 in your pocket and go see what you can find at Walmart. But get your tent, and we'll keep talking gear until you have the stuff you need, and then we'll talk about getting out there. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.